Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Bites Whiskey Reviews with a Gaming Twist. I'm Clifton, and today we have a really awesome show. We have a guest from Rabbit Hole Distillery. He's going to take us on a virtual tour of the distillery. So you don't need any VR goggles for this one because it's coming to you live to your TVs or phone or whatever you kids are using these days. First of all, I got to give some shout outs to our mods here. I see the Linux Cat, I see Brandon Wees, and I'm sure others will be joining us throughout the night. So give a shout out to our mods here. We also have several patrons in the room. One is not here yet. He actually just did a premiere on his channel, Drums and Drams, who many of you know. He just became a patron of the show last week. So y'all go show him some love. Go subscribe to his channel. Tell him I sent you, even though I didn't because he is probably just as big as me. So either way, we share a lot of the same viewers here. So you guys already know him. But also a few patrons other than him. We have Don Nishida, Adriana, Whiskey Mountains. Go check out her channel. Also have Nick. Good to see you, Nick. We have, I think that's it, actually. None of people pre-gaming tonight. You guys have been pre-gaming other people's streams. I get you. Wesley Zeller, good to see you. Wesley, I actually just sent off his new, which I guess that was a good segue. It wasn't meant to be a good segue, but we now have Bourbon Bites Challenge. Oh, man, you know what? Hold on. I got this. I practiced this. Okay, wait. It's the green screen. We now have Bourbon Bites Challenge coins. So let's see if it'll focus on that right there. Oh, come on. Man, it was doing so good earlier. Okay. Well, anyways, you can see these more on Patreon. So the front is my logo and the back says no mash value. It's a lot more clear than this. I promise. It's not blurry on the coin. So these are currently for patrons only. So if you become a patron at any level, you can get your very own Bourbon Bites Challenge coin. You can purchase them if you're a patron at any level. Certain tiers get these at the, after their second or third month or whatever. Go check out patreon.com/Bourbon Bites. You'll see all the info there about what you get, when you get it, if you sign up for the other tiers, or if you want to buy one. Like I said, right now it's exclusive to patrons. I do only have 100 of these in this first batch. So if you want to get your hands on a first edition, first batch Bourbon Bites Challenge coin, which are, by the way, obviously styled after arcade tokens. That was kind of the plan with them, which, I thought was pretty fitting. I'm really proud of how they came out. Huge fan of these. So yeah, definitely get your orders in now. Because like I said, there's only 100 in this first batch. Let me get my beauty light on real quick. There we go. All right. So also quick with Patreon, I did just update the tiers for my higher end tiers, Bourbon Terabytes, and of course my Bourbon Daddy, which you all know is my high-end $100 a month tier. Those tiers have both been updated with some really awesome perks. The Bourbon Terabytes, before I didn't really feel like a place for it. Like there was no one subscribed to it, but I found a way that I think would bring a lot of value to people who are curious about it. So Bourbon Terabytes now get access to my Bourbon Bites subscription box, where we do a guided tasting of the subscription box once a month. So if you are interested in a Bourbon Bites subscription box, definitely check out that tier. Of course, you get challenge coins as well. So just want to let you guys know that was an option. I thought it'd be pretty fun. It is limited to only 10 people because the subscription box has to be distributed through me. So anyways, with that out of the way, I do want to introduce our very special guest for the evening. Please welcome Adam Edwards from Rabbit Hole Distillery.
Hey, Clifton, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for joining tonight.
You are so welcome. I am very appreciative that you're allowing me on your channel tonight. I'm going to show everybody around the distillery. I'm super excited to do it. I love doing this stuff.
Well, thank you for staying. I know it's late. It's like 10 p.m. there for you. You were doing something else at the distillery though tonight. I promise. I didn't make you drive out here just for me, right?
No, I would have done it anyways. But I've always got a packed schedule, but I don't mind it. I mean, I have like the greatest job in the world. I'm such a bourbon fan, that I love walking around this place and showing this place off every single day. Sorry, Mark. We got distilleries running around. We're busy. We're working anyways. Even in the middle of the night, we're making bourbon here. So not a problem at all. I am happy to be here.
Very cool. So that's what we're going to start out with tonight. We're going to do a tour around the distillery. Then he's going to take us to the tasting room where we're going to taste through 2 of their bourbon expressions. So you guys are based in Louisville, right?
We are. We are in Louisville, Kentucky. We're in a neighborhood of Louisville called New Lou, which is in downtown Louisville. There's several other distilleries in the area, something like 8 other distilleries in the immediate area. So this is where it happens. This is bourbon capital.
That's awesome. I've only been I've only been once, and I didn't quite make it to Rabbit Hole. I was only there for I was only in the Louisville area for 3 days, so I had my very tight schedule. But next time, I saw Rabbit Hole was like just a few blocks from my hotel. I'm like, dang it, why didn't I know this? So I'm really excited.
That's okay. Next time you come in town, you can stop on by. We'll have a drink together. It would be awesome.
Well, I guess go ahead and give us a preview. Show us around the distillery. Feel free to take your time with that. I know some of these people may have never been on distillery tours, so you guys in the chat, feel free to chime in with questions. I will put them up on the screen and we'll ask as we go along. No question, trust me, just treat this like a distillery tour. No question is too dumb. I think we're going to see a lot of technical stuff. A lot of you are familiar with that, but some of you may be new to it. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm sure Adam will be happy to answer. Adam, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. So my name is Adam Edwards. I'm the digital brand ambassador for Rabbit Hole Distillery. Basically like a national brand ambassador, yet digital, doing this for a living. And it's an amazing way to bring people into our distillery. You can see I'm standing next to this amazing bourbon is a verb. I love this phrase. I love this bourbon is a verb. The reason that we have bourbon is a verb right here is because the room I'm about to show you is where we bourbon. You bourbon, I bourbon, we all bourbon together. So now I'm going to pick you up and take you away. I was just talking to Clifton about this. As a digital brand ambassador, I'm always very fond of new selfie sticks. So I got a brand spanking new selfie stick.
All good.
Here we go.
Our friend Topher says this is his first distillery tour, so he's very excited.
Welcome to the
Oh,
distillery.
wow, nice. Bring an old school style selfie stick.
Oh, yeah, here we go. So this is the Atrium. This is where we do all of the distillation and the fermentation. And, of course, you can see the main draw, the centerpiece of this space is this incredible column still. This is a 48-foot tall column still. You can see it goes all the way up the top. We'll be up there in just a few minutes. And you can even peer over the side here, all the way down to the original foundations of the building. It's a really beautiful piece. It's custom built. The company that does these is called Vendome. They're only about 4 blocks from here. And they make something like 95%. I think it's 95% of the country's copper stills.
It's a bunch,
Vendome. And every piece is completely custom built. So we'll take a little walk around here. Now we
do have our first question here real quick.
Perfect.
So Brandon asked, when did you guys open this location in downtown?
So we opened this location on Derby Day of 2018. I believe that was May 5th. So we've been around since 2012. We started contract distilling. So contract distilling is kind of where you don't have your own kitchen yet. You're just using somebody else's kitchen, but you bring all your own food. You bring all your own ingredients. So we found a distillery in northern Kentucky where we could take all of our grains and all of our yeast, and we made it out of that distillery for a few years. We were on the shelf in 2016, but in 2018, we opened this distillery to the public. And of course, now it's coming on almost a year that we have been closed to the public because of the pandemic. So I think we closed on March 16th of last year. I think I've got that right.
Is it just closed to the public or closed like production-wise? Probably not, right?
Oh, no. Production-wise, 365, 24/7.
Gotcha.
We have not stopped. The only times that we stop are like Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. But even then, it still kind of keeps going. What we do is we just lower the temperature of these fermenters so they can sit just a couple days longer. And that way, all the distillers get a little time off too. Sure. So, but we're all the time. We're 24/7. We actually produce about 60 to 70 barrels of distillate a day.
Wow, nice.
I do love showing this off. I think this is cool. So this pipe right here behind me, I'm like a weatherman. I have to do it backwards. Here we go. This pipe right behind me, this is where we're pulling all of the milled grain. Now, this is a brand new cook. This just started. So it's the corn first. And I can tell by the color, all this corn has been milled down into a pretty fine powder. And it's going to go over top of my head, keep going, and then this is where the selfie stick comes in really handy.
Work your angles.
Pretty nice, right? I'm like a pro with the selfie stick. So it's going to drop down this tube here and enter this big mash cooker. So this is basically like a big pressure cooker. We're going to drop all the grain in here, add the water, and cook it all for about 4 to 6 hours. So you're going to have the corn first, and then you're going to cook that at a certain temperature, then lower that temperature a little bit and start adding your other grains like rye or malted barley, anything else you're using in the mash bill. Everything's going to cook in there for a few hours. That way it's going to, especially with the malted grains, that heat and the water are going to start releasing things called amylases and diastases, and actually release more sugars as well. Those amylases and diastases, they're going to break down those complex starches into simple sugars, because that is important for the next step, which is happening in these beautiful guys right here. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio.
I love the mash room. This is my favorite part of distillery tours, just like smelling it.
So good. I mean, today it is definitely like banana bread in here, like hardcore banana bread. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio. So this mash cooker over here is 8,000 gallons. We have 9 mash tanks in here, so 9 fermenters are also 8,000 gallons. We'll put that mash in here, pitch the yeast, so add the yeast in there, and then it's just 72 hours of the yeast working harder than anyone else in this building. I tell you, the yeast is like the hardest worker. It is just going to start eating all those sugars, and it's going to start producing things like heat and carbon dioxide, and everybody's favorite, alcohol. This one's really going right now.
Oh, wow.
This one's about a little over 24 hours at this point. These over here, like this one is only about, put this one, 8 hours, maybe.
And how long do you say you typically keep them in the cooker?
72 hours, about a 3-day fermentation. And so you can see this foam is pretty relaxed, not a whole lot going on. I like when I touch it, and then it's just like a chain reaction. It just sort of takes off, and everything starts boiling. It's like, leave me alone, man. Leave me alone. So the yeast
Brandon asked about mash bills. Brandon, we're going to talk mash bills once we get to the actual whiskey to taste them, because these are 2 different mash bills.
So these today, all this is Heigold. So this is the high rye bourbon, and rye tends to foam up quite a bit. That's why we were kind of looking at that one I just touched. Had a really high foam to it. Rye tends to do that as it ferments. It's got a little more starch in it, and so it really, really creeps up. Those bubbles get a little bit thicker, and it'll foam up quite a bit.
So I've heard that rye is harder. Is it harder? I know it's more expensive to distill. Is it because it's harder? Is there something different about rye when you're distilling it?
Yeah. So fermentation is really the issue with rye. It becomes so foamy that a lot of people just didn't do it for a long time. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of like MGP or LBI. That's one of the largest distilleries in the country. They really cornered the market on rye because they had the material to do it. They had all the space to do it. And a lot of people just source their rye from MGP, and it's delicious. It's great. But really the key to rye is keeping a pretty low head space. You've got a lot of space up here. We're not filling them to the top. And then you'll probably see like a hose in the background as I'm walking around. They'll just use that hose to kind of spray down the sides, and that keeps it from foaming over the top. Now, these are just high rye bourbon mash bills, so they're really not too bad. But our rye, which is the 95.5 rye, so 95% rye, the 5% malted barley, that one we really got to keep an eye on as we're fermenting, or it'll spill over the sides, and no one has time to clean that up here, I guarantee it.
Well, while we're talking about the fermentation stage, Adriana asked, is 72 hours standard, or is it just for particular yeast strains?
You know, everybody does it a little bit different, but generally you will see anywhere between a 3 to 5 day fermentation. Some people like to do it longer at like a little bit of a lower temperature. Some people like to do it quicker at a higher temperature. Our temperature isn't really too high. We'll get it up to about 89 degrees, right under where it'll kill the yeast off. And then we let that slowly work its way down a little closer to like 72, 74 degrees. So we kind of have the best of both worlds on that. A quick fermentation, or a slow fermentation, is about flavor development, but really you got to remember, the barrels are going to give you like 70% of the flavor of a bourbon, right? So you really, fermentation, I think, is a little bit more about process. How much time do you have? How much, for us, we do 3 shifts a day, right? We've got people that work in the morning, in the middle to late part of the day, and then overnight. And so since we're able to continuously distill and ferment, we can do 3 turnarounds on these. I mean, basically that works out to every 8 hours, we're emptying one of these mash tanks. So that gets us like 60 to 70 barrels a day. That actually gets us a little over 20,000 barrels a year. And we do, we're only 55,000 square feet. So if you do that math, we actually make more bourbon per square foot than any distillery in the country.
I was going to say, I always think of you guys as like a smaller one, but I mean, dang, that's a lot of bourbon.
It's a lot. It's a lot. In fact, we are in the process of expanding. We're putting 3 new fermenters in pretty soon. So we're going to try and, increase our output about 25-30%.
That's awesome.
Because we need it. We're popular. There's a good
yeah. Well, I see you guys all the time out here in Southern California.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
So, oh man, California loves this. I can tell you that. I do a lot for California. So I love this shot right here, like right next to the still. You can really see where that steam is interacting with that mash. This is actually, you can see this intake pipe right here. This is actually where we put the steam in. This is where that steam hits that beer. So that steam is just lifting up through the beer, because you can call this distiller's beer. It's like beer without hops. It gets up to about 8 to 10% alcohol after 72 hours. And then that steam is just going to start lifting that alcohol out as a vapor. And then we'll separate that from the spent grains in the water as much as possible to get you that first run of distill. It comes off this still usually around 125 to 128 proof.
So when it leaves, Adrian is asking, when it leaves these tanks, where does it go into that still right there?
It does. It has a couple stops. So you can actually see we're in the process of, we're in the process of emptying this one. So you can see it's really moving around. There's a big agitator in the bottom of it. And the reason we do that, let me show you this one here. This one's in a little darker area, but I think you can see it. It's got, that first one I showed you with the thick foam. Well, all that's gone now. And now it's kind of got this thin film on top. And that film is basically a solid. So it's like the spent yeast and all that. We want to make sure that we're, get it. Man, that tastes so good. I always can't help myself. I have to taste it. Like, it's like beer. It's got like this nice sour kind of sweet flavor to it.
Another favorite part of going to the distilleries is tasting it.
Man, tasting the mash is amazing. Like
I don't know how it's going to happen, like when things reopen though, with things now. I mean, do you guys?
I mean, I that's a really good question too, because we're not really sure either. From a scientific level, we know it's fine, right?
Yeah, because it's not going to that's not what's going in people's bottles.
Exactly, but still, some people just are uncomfortable with it. I'm never going to force anybody to touch the mash. I can tell you that, So yeah, that one that's moving, we're just basically breaking up the solids, and we're going to sit it underneath my feet, and then it's going to go in this big tank here. So this is the beer well. So this is like the 10th tank that's in here. This one is a lot bigger than these fermenters. All those are about 14 feet deep, 8,000 gallons. This one is about 20 or so feet deep, and it holds about 12,000 gallons. So the whole point of this one is to continuously churn it while we're putting it into the still. And to show you how thin it has to get, it's all going through this pipe right here. Wow. This is a really skinny pipe right here. So all of this beer is going through, everything you drink from Rabbit Hole, it's going to go through this little pipe right here. This basically tells us if we have it the right consistency. If it's too thick to go through this pipe, it's going to be too thick for the still, and it's going to plug it up. We'll actually overflow it. So you want to make sure it's nice and thin so that it has the best chance of kind of interacting with that steam and getting all of the alcohol pulled out of it.
Sure. So do you guys use a sweet mash method or like a sour mash?
Sour mash. So we do a sour mash. Now it's always funny when you talk about sour mash, because everybody. So let's say you're doing the same bourbon all the time, right? I mean, we're working on anywhere from 5 to 7 different mash bills, at any one time. So if we're doing just one mash bill forever, we can sit there and do sour mash, sour mash, sour mash. But let's say we're doing it's all Heigold in here today. Let's say tomorrow we're going to start filling with rye whiskey. So you don't want to use the leftovers. When people aren't familiar with sour mash, it's where you're taking some of the stuff that's falling to the bottom of the still and you're putting it into the next cook. It's kind of like a sourdough starter. It kind of kickstarts fermentation, kind of keeps consistency, and gives something for the yeast to kind of latch onto. Now, let's say we switch to rye tomorrow. We're not going to have any rye setback. We call that setback to start that sour mash. So what you do is you do a couple runs of sweet mash. It's all going to kind of get blended together anyways, right? So you're going to do a couple runs of sweet mash, and then all of a sudden you've got some setback, and within 8 to 16 hours you can start doing sour mash continuously again. So you're really only getting like 2 of these mash tanks that would be a sweet mash. Even then, it's not really going to be a sweet mash, because it's all going to get mixed together in that beer well a little bit by little bit right when it gets dropped into that still.
Yeah, so JJ, he kind of spoke about that, but just I guess one liner, what's the difference between sweet mash and sour mash? That was awesome technical explanation, but just
Yeah, so sweet mash is where you're not taking that what's left from this distillation drop to the bottom of the still. You're not taking that and adding it to the next cook. So for example, our friends over at Peerless, which is like 8 blocks from here, something like that. They do sweet mash all the time. They like it for flavor development. It works really well with their mash bills and their idea of what makes a really good bourbon, right? That does mess with your pH a little bit, so you kind of have to get a little bit more creative using things like citric acid to kind of balance your pH a little bit. Sour mash, when you're taking some of that cook, that previous cook, and putting it into the next cook, you're able to stabilize your pH. I think it gives a little bit of a better flavor. People hear sour mash, they think sour flavors. Not really. It's just getting a little bit more consistency in flavor between the cooks. And that way you don't have to worry about wild variances between barrels. You're always going to have variance between barrels, but if you're doing a sour mash, it kind of alleviates that just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. And on the other end of the technical spectrum, Brandon's asking, how many types of yeast strains do you guys use?
Uno.
Just one?
One type of yeast strain, yeah. We use one type of yeast strain, yeah. We use a pretty neutral yeast, nothing too crazy. The reason for that is we really like to focus on our grains. And, we're going to do a tasting here in a little bit, so we'll talk more about that as we get up there. But we like to focus on our grains and then the barrels, adding a lot of flavor. Because we use really special barrels, too. Also, I always feel when I stand right here, I'm about to tell like a campfire scary story because all the light is like underneath. He was in the back of the car the whole time. So this is the mid layer of our still right here. So you can see this beautiful piece of equipment. This is our low wine spirit save. This clear liquid that's coming out of here. This is the first run. So we've dropped that beer at the top, pumped the steam in the bottom. That steam has lifted the alcohol out of that distiller's beer. We've sent it right here to this big column, which chills it down and recondenses it into this first run. Now, this first run, you can call it low wine, low shine, the stripping run. There's all sorts of names for it. That one is about 125 to 128 proof. It's great, but it's not perfect. So we're going to redistill it. We're going to take it downstairs it's going to actually flow through these, let's see, there we go. These pipes right here down to what you call a doubler. And I think if I do this just right, let me get my body out of the way. There you go.
Someone was speaking earlier about their fear of, they didn't know they had a fear of heights until this video.
Yeah, you're welcome. I used to. I don't anymore. I can tell you that. So this piece of equipment right here on the bottom floor, that's the doubler. It's basically a smaller still. You're taking that low wine, putting it down there, redistilling it into high wine or high shine or distill it. That one's going to come off at about 138 proof. And so from there, we'll take it next door to our aging tanks. We're going to drop the proof on it quite a bit. So to be bourbon, there's all sorts of those bourbon laws, right? It's got to be at least 51% corn, made in the United States, aged in virgin oak charred vessels, I think is the actual law, the actual language of the law. And then can't be distilled above 160 proof, can't be put in the barrel higher than 125 proof, and can't be put in the bottle lower than 80. We don't put it in the barrel at 125 proof. If we did that, we would get more bourbon. But the problem is, our bottle proof is like 95. So let's say you put it in the barrel at 125 proof. After a couple years, it's going to be 150 proof or something like that. You're going to have to add a lot of water, and you're going to really dilute all those flavors that you married together while aging it in the barrel. We don't want to do that. So we add water now after it's done distilling. We add a bunch of water now to bring it all the way down to 110 proof, fill those barrels. So after a few years, it's only up to like 115, 116 at most. We don't have to add that much water to get it down to 95 proof. So you're sacrificing quantity for quality. Really
gotcha. I've seen a couple questions come in about do you guys have any plans for when you're going to open back up to the public, or is this kind of like up in the air right now?
Still working on that. I know a couple of my friends, Allie and Tom, the tour lead and the retail lead here, they're really working very hard with Cave to determine the best day to do that. We just want to make sure that everybody is safe, but we're also able to give what we call the best-in-class experience. If anybody out there has taken a tour here at Rabbit Hole, this one, not this one, I know this is a great tour, but when you come here in person, we really offer this incredible experience here. And we want to make sure that we're still able to offer a really incredible experience, but to do so safely. And that just takes time. And we just, we have to we've got to protect this, right? All of this down here, we have to protect this. That is the most important part. We've got to protect the liquid. So we've been very cautious, very, very cautious for it.
And the other question,
things are looking better.
That kind of answers that question. So it's like, do you get to taste the right off the still, like at some distilleries. Probably not anytime soon if they're going to do that, passing the jar around. I've seen that happen at a few different distilleries.
Yeah, we used to do that. We wouldn't really let you taste from it so much as we would fill up a Glencairn from that condenser, the high wine condenser. You just kind of pass around and smell it. Or you could like dip a finger in it and then taste it off your finger.
Yeah, I think Peerless, Peerless, they give you use like the cap of your water bottle and they like pour like a drop in your cap.
Exactly. I think, that sort of thing, that's, a lot of things are going to change in our culture after this, obviously, right? Sure. So I have a feeling that that's probably not going to happen too much. Right. Although at 138 proof, like COVID does not stand a chance.
What's it going to do?
It doesn't stand a chance.
Right.
I do like to show off this. I love this. All right. I hope nobody gets dizzy. You're going to love this. On this platform, on this like second floor landing in the Atrium, and when you come to the distillery, make sure I'm standing in the right place. Yeah, when you come to the distillery and you stand right where I'm standing, if you kind of do this slow circle, you can actually see every single aspect of distillation and fermentation from right here. So you can see the cooker there and the grains coming to that. You can see the doubler all the way down there. You can see the still. You can see the fermentation tanks all around you. You can even see the beer warmer that we'll get up to that in a few minutes. This little cylinder all the way up there. We warm that beer up. You can see every single aspect of distillation and fermentation right here. Pretty much like 90% of the entire process.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like small in terms of like everything's there, but it's huge. I'm just looking around at these towering beams and towering stills. It's beautiful. I mean, I would love to see it in person.
We really love to make sure that people kind of get that experience, be able to see everything like right up against like these monsters of machinery. But at the same time, we want people to feel comfortable. This is our home. In fact, when you take a tour at Rabbit Hole, the first thing we do when you walk in the door, when you signed up for a tour and you've shown up for it, we give you a drink. We all have a drink together because that's what you do in the South. Here in Kentucky, if you walk in my house, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, hey, welcome, what can I get you to drink, right?
I'm in Southern California, but same thing here.
Same thing, right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's just hospitality. It's just being a great host. And so we want people to have that experience here. So we want to bring people into our home and show them as much as possible, but we want everybody to be comfortable while we're doing it. So, take a look at the ceiling here. You may notice we have no fans in this space, but this space is always in between about 70 and 80 degrees. The reason we're able to achieve that is the shape of this ceiling. This is called a butterfly ceiling. Any hot air that we create in here, when it rises up, it splits and it forces that air back down and it pulls the energy off of it. So that air all of a sudden becomes a little denser and cooler. It creates a circulation in here. In fact, let me see if I can do this right. Air. This is the only inward-facing vent in the entire space. All this does is it's pulling cold air through this duct that circles the windows. So these are just big, big windows that show out into the neighborhood. For steam cleaning a tank in here, there's never any fog on those windows. So this neighborhood, Nulu, can always see in, and we can always see out. It's very, very important for us to have that level of transparency here.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Cool. I love this.
Your heights again.
And then, of course, like one of the coolest shots right here in front of the top of the still. So right here is where we're actually putting the beer in. You can see that porthole right there has some of that beer stacked up against it. Everything else above it is called the rectifying part of the still. So if you look closely, you can kind of see. Let me see if I can get you a little closer. Look at that. You can actually see some of that water. I know, right? You can actually see it's like rain on the windshield. It's the water separating from the alcohol and just dropping to the bottom of the still all the way down there. So it goes all the way down. And that is, you call that stillage. That's actually, we're going to have that picked up. So truckers are going to come pick that up and take it to farms to use as animal feed. And then this right up here, we were talking about where it goes after we empty out one of those tanks. So it goes to that big beer well, and then that skinny pipe I showed you comes all the way up here, and it goes to, there we go, this piece of equipment, this big cylinder. This is called a beer warmer. Well, the actual technical name of it is a heat exchanger, but we all call it a beer warmer because it warms the beer. I don't know. We're really on the nose on how we name things in this industry. And so you warm that beer up, and then you drop it into the still so it doesn't burn it.
Gotcha. Yeah, we just have seen a lot of questions about the actual whiskey. Trust me, we're going to get to the whiskey and talk about the different expressions they have here soon. But this is really, I mean, it's the first time I've ever had a distillery tour on a stream, so that's really awesome.
Pretty neat. It's
So
pretty
do you guys
neat.
where do you do your barrel aging? Do you guys do it on site, or obviously not, or unless you guys have a barrel house, probably not there.
So it is the only thing that we don't do on site is age here. I'm going to flip my camera up and set it back up into. We're going to go from selfie stick mode into tripod mode. Amazing.
It's all one device. You give me a
Wow.
selfie stick tripod.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I definitely did not expense this out the rabbit hole either. I lied. Absolutely, I did. All right, here we go. So this is, by the way, this is called Overlook. This is our rooftop bar. We call it Overlook because obviously it overlooks the distillery, but these windows offer an amazing view of the city of Louisville. At night, it's kind of hard to see because you just get the reflection, but it's the best view of downtown Louisville in here. So no, we don't age on property. It's one of the few things that we don't do here. We actually age in Henry County, Kentucky, which is about 40 minutes that way. And we have 3 warehouses. So we just finished building the 3rd one. And they're kind of the same. They're like, let's see, this color, this kind of dark gray right here.
Okay.
That way, even in the winter, they're retaining heat and it doesn't arrest that aging at all.
Gotcha.
And so I know the first one held like about 16,000 barrels. The second one holds just under 20,000. The third one is holding just under 25,000. So,
awesome.
You know, we're able to fill those up pretty quickly.
Are those like on site, like your like actual workhouse, or are there other like distilleries that also age there?
There are.
They're yours? Okay.
They are ours. Yeah. You know, we were aging before we had those built. Castle and Key was amazing. Right. They actually held our barrels in their warehouses, which was awesome.
Castle and Key does that for a lot of people, I've noticed.
Yeah, Castle. I mean, they have great space.
Yeah,
you know, they even.
I love their distillery. It's one of my favorite that I was able to tour.
Super cool space there, and they even bottled for us before we had our bottling line installed.
Oh, nice.
So we installed our bottling line. It didn't take long. I mean, it was only a couple months after we opened. But yeah, I mean, they were really great. I mean, that's how the industry is. You know, I think everyone assumes that the bourbon industry is, you know, really, really, you know, we really kind of compete against each other. We're competitive. I mean, we compete on the market, on the shelves. But in the actual industry, we're all friends. I mean, I can see a couple other distilleries from here, and I mean, we're that close, right? So we all get along, and it's just what is good for one distillery is good for us. What's good for us is good for another distillery.
Absolutely. Well, Brandon asked, do you guys do tours of the barrel house or not typically?
Not yet. There was a plan. I mean, you know, the pandemic kind of ruined a lot of people's plans. Obviously, we did have a plan to open a visitor center out there. And we won an award for the design. We won an architectural award just for the design of the visitor center that we haven't even built yet. That's how amazing the design is of it. I mean, this building alone, I mean, this is called the architectural icon of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail because it's an award-winning design. Same thing with that guest house.
Man, I'm just seeing it now. Like, why didn't I go there? I was right down the street from it too.
Plenty of time to come back. So, but we, you know, I have a feeling that in the future we will open up some sort of on-site hospitality unit there, whether or not it's just for like barrel selection or you know, bringing tours in, stuff like that. I'm not quite sure yet, but surely we're going to do something amazing with it.
Yeah, that actually goes back to another question. Donnie asked, do you guys do any kind of single barrel select program, or are you guys planning on doing that at some point?
We are launching that this year. It is going to be incredibly limited for the first couple years. You know, less than 10 barrels, I think, this year. And it's all going to be in Kentucky only at first, just because it's so limited. But as we expand that program over the next couple of years, you're going to start to see those being selected by other groups and other retail stores, you know, around the country in the next few years. And I know, like, the first ones that we're doing are going to be Heigold. Heigold single barrels and all cask strength. And oh man, the label design is incredible. We picked you know, everyone's always crazy about the labels, right? When you pick a single barrel, you want to put your label on it. We got this incredible artist from South Korea to create these labels. I can't talk a whole lot about it right now because we're getting ready to do the first selection pretty soon. The first one is going to be selected by a very prominent whiskey reviewer, actually. So just be on the lookout for that. But they're all going to be charity bottles. We're going to be donating the proceeds of these bottles to, I'm not quite sure exactly which organization it's going to go to, but it's going to benefit restaurant and hospitality workers here in Louisville. So that's the
awesome.
labels are amazing. It's kind of a play on Alice in Wonderland, is about as far as I can go with it.
Sure.
But it's incredible. The artistry is incredible.
You guys stay tuned for that, because that sounds really awesome. And we love supporting other creators here. And of course, when it goes to giving back to the community and giving back to those in the service industry, I think that's such a great cause. So while we're talking about bourbon, let's go to get something in our glass. I mean, we've been talking about it. I've been seeing a lot of it, but I haven't been drinking it. So which one are we starting with here tonight?
We're going to start with Cavehill.
Okay.
And I hope everybody that is joining us tonight, hopefully you got some Rabbit Hole with you. If you're not, pour whatever. That's fine. It's all bourbon is wonderful, right? And before we get like super nerdy into this, Clifton and everybody on the stream, I want to do something that's really special to me. I love doing this with people for the first time that I'm able to drink with them. I think you can learn a lot about somebody by asking, I don't know, what they do for a living, what their favorite color is, what their hobbies are, what's your favorite dinosaur. I mean, there's so many things you get to know a person, but you don't really know a person until you've had that first drink with them, right? So, Clifton, cheers, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. Everybody in the chat, cheers, salute,
cheers,
All right. So now let's get nerdy. Let's get nerdy, right? So Cavehill. Cavehill is the first bourbon that we produced. This was Cave's very first mash bill that he produced. The name really alludes to all the distillers that came before us, the shoulders of the giants that we're standing on to like further elevate this already incredible spirit. This one is really born from the idea of be transparent and don't be white noise. Don't do the same thing that everyone else is doing, right? Cave moved to Louisville in the early 2000s. He was living in Chicago, and he met a girl from Louisville, turned him into a bourbon drinker, and then, wildly overshot the mark. And they moved here to Louisville, and he really fell in love with Louisville, but also the bourbon industry and bourbon in particular, right? So one thing that really frustrated him was that it seemed everybody kind of did the same thing. It was either wheat was the secondary flavoring grain, like wheaters and wheated bourbons, or rye was the secondary flavoring grain. Now, that's changed quite a bit in the last several years as more distilleries have opened. But he really wanted to kind of bring it back to some pre-Prohibition mash bills, things that people did before Prohibition when there's thousands of distilleries in Kentucky, whereas today there's 60, right? So he, being a Scotch drinker, understood malt. He understood what malt did, not from a scientific level, but from a flavor level. And he realized that before Prohibition, lots of distilleries use a lot more malt than they do now. So he decided to create a bourbon that is a 4-grain, but is not the same kind of 4-grain that everyone else does, where it's just wheat and rye, right? Let's get real creative. Let's take the 2 grains and put them together. He did 70% corn, and then 30% malt. And those 30% malt is broken up with malted wheat, malted barley, and honey malted barley. And I will tell you right away that even though this has malted wheat in it, that is not the flavoring grain. This is not a wheated bourbon. This one, the malted barley and the honey malted barley are truly the flavoring grains. In that honey malt, you get right on the nose, just like honeycomb, oak and vanilla, of course. Maybe some. Every bottle is a little different. I will tell you, we do really small batches, like 15 barrel batches or less every time we bottle. The bottle of Cavehill I'm drinking on tonight, I kind of did something. I was already here doing something earlier. Mine is like super minty tonight. It's like wintergreen mint on mine tonight.
I could see a little bit of that. I think I was getting almost like a sweet, like grape, like a wine. I don't know, like a muscadine grape. So I'm kind of getting a little bit of that kind of like fruitiness on it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say this, and you're probably going to be like, oh my God, that's absolutely right. Double bubble, like the pink chewing gum.
You know what? That's, I think, when I was getting mintiness. I think I get more of that than the mintiness. Yeah. It's got some of that,
your bottle's like a little different than mine, which is like super fun about those small batches.
Yeah, and it's more bubble.
The first.
The powdered like sugar kind of note, that this powdered sugar that's outside of the bubble gum. Like that's what I'm getting a lot of.
The first time somebody said that to me that worked here was like when I first came on board with Rabbit Hole several years ago. they kind of said that to me, and it was one of those moments that someone says it, and you're like, "Oh, son of a gun!" Like, absolutely, that's 1,000% right.
Yeah, it's really great on the nose.
So
on the palate, though, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, please. I want to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a sweet. I think more the honey aspect I'm getting on the palate more than the nose. I was trying to look for it on the nose, I couldn't find it, but I think when I taste it, it's like kind of on the finish. It goes to that like honeycomb, almost like the honeycomb part of the honeycomb, not just like the honey, but like the
material, like the sweet waxy kind of part.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I'm getting a bit on the finish. I mean, but it's again, is this aged? Do you guys have an age on this one?
So everything has an age statement on the back of the bottle. We put the minimum age on here. It's always going to be at least 3 years old. The reason for that is because of those small batching. Sometimes we'll pull a barrel that's 4 or 4.5 years old. It tastes really old. It tastes like a 10-year-old bourbon. And that really, maybe it's a little too oaky, got too oaky too quickly. So we use a younger barrel to kind of blend that out. So it's a little more consistent of a flavor profile. But yeah, I mean, you're right on with that kind of waxy honey sort of finish, because for me, Cavehill, even though it's got wheat in it, and no rye, it starts very spicy for me and gets kind of herby, and then even green apple and pear in the mid palate. But that finish is like creme brulee or vanilla custard and honeycomb. And if you think about that waxy part of the honeycomb, we don't chill filter any of our bourbons. So now you're kind of bordering on that. Is it mouthfeel? Is it flavor? Is it both? You can say something is vanilla, but if you say vanilla, cream or creme brulee or, honeycomb, like waxy honeycomb, you're really talking more flavor and texture at the same time.
Sure. And I know a lot of people, like you said, they see the 4-year minimum and they think, oh, this is just 4-year stuff. But I can tell you, this has got a lot more complexity. I've had some, 4-year, usually those are single barrels, which is a little bit different. You guys mix in some older stock too, but it doesn't have any of that, it's sweet, but it's not that corn, just you're only tasting the corn. There's definitely a lot of the oak influence there too. So I definitely think this drink's a lot older than the 4-year statement on the bottle.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, back in the day, when the bourbon bubble sort of happened, everybody was looking for, everybody thinks they want the oakiest, oldest bourbon out there. Sure. Until they actually have the oakiest, oldest bourbon out there.
I know over oak bourbon, for sure.
You know what I mean? And so age isn't that important to everybody right now. It's definitely a factor. You want to keep going and just see what happens in the barrel. But just because a barrel is older than another barrel doesn't mean it's any better. The barrel tells you when it's done. When it's done, it's done. You don't tell the barrel. So if it's great at 3.5 years old, it's great. If it's great at 8.5 years old, it's great. We let the barrel tell us. Oh man, Cavehill just has such a great nose on it.
So this is your I guess baseline, the more affordable of the two, right? This one's about what?
No, these are both the same price.
Oh, okay. Out here, I checked my total line here. This one is 48, and then the Heigold is 65. But I wasn't sure. Different regions, of course, vary. You guys all know that.
That's
in the chat.
That's a really great deal on Cavehill. That's a really great deal on Cavehill. You should buy all the Cavehill at 48. Yeah, because this one generally, both of these are supposed to be 55 to 59. So if you see Cavehill for $48, clear the shelf.
Well, that's good to know.
That's a really
for some reason, what's funny? For some reason, out here in Southern California, bourbon is relatively affordable. The ones that typically get a price hike in other regions, no, we can find it. I mean, now finding it's kind of a hard thing, but when you do find it, we're not even a regulated state, so pricing is all over the place. But typically, Southern California is a good place to be for bourbon. Now, everything else is ridiculously expensive. My rent's ridiculously expensive, but bourbon's good.
Well, it's an even out for you. You spend a lot of money on housing, not a lot of bourbon. It evens out for you. That's
sure.
And is asking, Southern California is a huge market, right?
Yeah. Another question coming in. What is the honey malted barley? Why is it called honey malted barley?
I love talking about this. So I've been in the industry for about 15 years, and I've always considered myself, I never want to say bourbon expert, because I feel like no one's an expert in bourbon except for 3 or 4 people out there, right? But I've always felt myself pretty well versed in the spirit. Being from Kentucky, being around for so long, I understand it quite a bit. And when I first heard honey malted barley and considering the amount of honey that is on this, I'm like, oh, they must take the barley and soak it in honey water or something. It's not that at all. It's really interesting. So malting first is where you take a grain and you get a little water on it, and basically it's faux germination. You try to think it's going to start growing. It'll crack open, a little shoot will appear, and then they dry it immediately. So that's just malted grains. What that does is increase the surface area, changes the enzymes, the enzymatic reactions you're going to produce when you start cooking with water, where you get some of those diastases and amylases. Now let's take that a step further. After you've done dry the grain, right? You take that grain and you kiln fire it. Some people do it different ways. The ones we use, they use kilns to do this. They kiln fire it and they toast it. And so when you toast it just a little bit and it starts to get like a light honey color, that's honey malt. And it does play into the taste too, because honey malt does bring a lot of honey to the flavor. Think like Honey Nut Cheerios. That's where they're getting a lot of the honey flavor, is toasting their grains to get like a honey color, and it gives a honey flavor. You can take it several different levels. You can have caramel malts. You know, it's a little bit more toast. Chocolate malts, coffee malts, things like that. Where, you know, there's some chocolate malt mash.
I was going to say,
around
wait,
here the last couple of years. Yeah.
You know, I might be getting confused because I see chocolate rye, and that's a different strain of rye. It's not.
Is a different strain. So you see like a chocolate malt, because there's like a mash bill that we're using that has chocolate malt rye and chocolate malt wheat, I think, in there, and chocolate malt barley. There's a few different types of chocolate malts you can use. I know that there is a strain of rye out there that is a chocolate rye, but I don't know if it's widely in use in distillation. I think when you see like chocolate rye on something, they're really talking about like chocolate malt.
Oh, so something like Woodford has their chocolate malt.
That's a chocolate malt.
Wow, I thought it, because I know Balcones now. I think they use the strain, because I think on the back of the bottle it does say using a unique. I mean, I gotta double check the bottle. Maybe I just interpret it as a strain versus the way that they toast it. So that's interesting. Very good info.
Yeah, that chocolate malting is great.
Which barrel char do you guys use? What level?
So everything is a 3. So the 2 that we're doing tonight, that's a level 3. The Derringer, if you ever see that sherry finish out there, that's a level 4. But the really interesting thing about our barrels is they're not just charred; they're toasted first. So Kelvin Cooperage. So, you know, if you look at the bottle, I was kind of talking about like the age statements on there. The mash bill is also on these bottles, to be very transparent. Right. But on Cavehill Heigold and then Boxer Grail or Rye, you'll see this little seal on the side here, and it's got a little like heraldic lion. That's Kelvin Cooperage's. That's it right there. Yeah, let's see if I can do it too. We'll do it together. There we go. Yeah.
You can make something out of here. Double vision. Make something out of both of
us. Double vision. So that is Kelvin Cooperage's seal. That's the cooperage that we use. So they toast and char every single barrel that they give us. The really cool thing that they do not use a gas flame. They actually build a wood fire underneath every single barrel. So when we're talking about this, you know, you're kind of talking about like this is like a 3.5 to 4.5-year-old bourbon that tastes a lot older. That is really playing into it, is using those special barrels to get like an older sort of flavor to it. The honey malt helps with that a little bit too, but those barrels are integral to our flavor.
Absolutely. I know we're running a little low on time, so I guess let's go ahead and get the next one poured in our glass. Let's go ahead and pour the Heigold, which, by the way, I didn't mention, but these bottles are absolutely beautiful. I gotta say, like, it's first of all, it's tall, so it's like at first I was like, oh, I don't have room to pour it here, but man, this stands out on the shelf. So I think that's probably why you guys do, especially in California, people care about how things look. So I think you guys did an awesome job with this. I mean, what is there a story behind like why you guys went this direction with like really having a standout bottle?
Exactly what you just said. It's tall. It's eye-catching. You know, you got to remember where this brand started from. It started with love, right? And so that bottle is seductive, and you kind of fall in love with the shape of it. It's very lovely to the eye.
It's very, very long. Maybe that's what I was trying to do. We'll see.
It is I mean, it's just a beautiful shape, that bottle, and I think that really just that plays back into that idea of love. You know what I mean? And so that's really, that bottle not only stands out, but it kind of means something to everybody too. So, all right. So, Heigold. So Heigold, whereas Cavehill is named after a whole bunch of people, Heigold's named after one guy, Christian Heigold, who was a German immigrant in the 19th century. He was a stonemason, changed the face of Louisville. Cave wanted to name a bottle after him because he's a huge Louisville figure. And since he was from Germany, we used 25% malted German rye in this, and 5% malted.
German's not a type of toasting, right?
Nope, comes straight from Germany.
Just want to make sure.
No, this one is straight up. So it's harvested and malted in Germany and then sent to us. German rye tends to have a little bit more kind of fruitiness and floral notes than like Northern American or Canadian rye, where those are a little bit more greener, a little bit stronger on like minty and herbal flavors and a little more black pepper on them. Since this is malted, it's even sweeter. This one's hard to guess that it's a high rye right away because this is like toasted coconut and butterscotch and orange peel.
I was gonna say, did you see the
same way.
I'm sorry if I missed it.
Yeah.
Did you go to
70% corn and then 25% malted German rye and 5% malted barley.
Okay.
So same ratio of like 70% corn to 30% malted grains, but completely different flavor. I mean, that's the reason we do 2 bourbons. You know, a lot of people look at it and go, why do you need 2 bourbons, 2 Kentucky straight bourbon whiskeys, both 95 proof, both about the same age, both ratio of grains? Because they taste completely different. They taste completely different.
Yeah, the one thing that you said, I think, on the nose is I do get like more citrus than, I know you said floral, but I'm getting a lot more citrus on this.
Yeah. Whereas like Cavehill is more like grapefruit.
This one to me smells more honey. The other one tasted more honey. This is like a honey sweet citrus kind of note.
This one's almost like honeysuckle to me. You know, like
okay, you know what? Yeah,
right, sort of honey.
Right.
Yeah. Which when you say honeysuckle, I feel like the honeysuckle doesn't really smell like when you say honeysuckle in like whiskey or wine.
Well, I grew up, even though I'm in California, I grew up in South Carolina. We had a honeysuckle tree outside, so I know the experience of it.
You know what I mean, though, right? That kind of like high honey smell. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it smells good. I haven't tried it yet though. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, definitely toasty. I mean, I know you say you toast the barrels on both these, but it has that. I love a good toast. Like a lot of distillers are releasing like a toasted rye or a toasted, release. I get some of those like I always get like a marshmallow sweetness on like a toasted product. So I'm getting a little bit of that there on this one.
Which is crazy because this is the high rye bourbon. Like you expect this one to be really spicy. I think Cavehill has a lot of that earthy kind of baking spice, whereas this one it's almost backwards. Like this one starts sweet and then gets citrusy on the mid palate, but then in the Kentucky hug right here, right in the chest, definitely like cinnamon, right?
Yeah, no,
really long finish.
If you weren't about to say cinnamon, I would say the finish is cinnamon for sure. So that's funny. We both got that.
And that's the Kelvin barrels just working really hard to bring out, different types of spice depending on the grains in there. And that just blows my mind that you can do everything. I mean, same fermentation technique, same stills, same yeast. You can do everything exactly the same way, non-chill filtering. You just switch out a few grains, and it's a completely different product. It's a completely different product.
Yeah, and someone was asking, do other distilleries use Kelvin cooperage often? I see them all the time. I think a lot of distilleries, especially ones that really care about the bottles. We just had someone on from I forget. You know what? I hate that I forget it. Chicken Cock.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Their master distiller over there, his big thing is barrels. That's kind of where he got his start. He was in the barrel industry. So he just talks about how important barrels are. And I believe they work with Kelvin cooperage. I could be wrong, but I think they do too.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, Kelvin, the thing about Kelvin is it takes so long for them to create barrels because roasting takes like 15, 20 minutes. Charring even takes, instead of being like a quick like 15, 30-second char, it's like 60 seconds char just to a level 3. So it really, they don't put out 15,000 barrels a day or whatever, like independent stage. So huge distilleries for the most part don't use Kelvin. It's kind of, the distilleries that are doing like 20,000 barrels a year, 35,000 barrels a year. Yeah. That are really trying to hone in on thinking about their bourbons like a chef does, building layer and layer and layer when you're cooking is so important to flavor development. And the barrel selection plays really big into that process.
Yeah, speaking of that, for those of you watching this, I'm actually next week I'm reviewing the new 4-Gate Ruby Springs Rye, and it's another situation where they really care about. They use Kelvin cooperage as well, so that's why I think it seems like there's a lot that use it, but I think it's a lot of these smaller ones that I'm collaborating with on this scale. So keep an eye out for that on hopefully next Thursday. I'm not going to be live on Thursday because I'm traveling, but I'll probably do a premiere of that video. So y'all, just a little teaser for those of you while we're on the topic of barrels.
I met the people that started 4-Gate right before they released the very first bottle. They actually came to the Rabbit Hole Distillery and did a tour with me. And it was just kind of cool just hearing, like, these people, they were so excited. They were releasing it, like, the next day. It was the big release day, and it was just so cool it was contagious, like, their excitement about it, So that's just how the industry is. we all love it when something new is getting ready to come out. We all kind of go crazy. Like the fans and consumers think they go crazy and they get FOMO. Try working at the distillery.
Yeah. Was it Bill over at Foregate?
Ah, man, it's been like 3 years now.
Oh, okay.
I just can't remember his name. It was
I
actually
think
like
Bill
a
is
few
over
different
there.
people. Mhm.
Bill he's not their master. They don't really have a master distiller. I think it's like a master blender situation. But every time they have a new release, he gets so excited. He emails me like, they actually haven't had them on a stream. I'd love to at some point. But he's like, oh, you got to try this new thing we have. And they just like send me a sample of it. So they get really, really excited about their releases.
I remember just hanging out with them that day and just having a ball with them. And it was like a few of them. I think it was kind of a mix between the people who were blending it, the people who invested in it, things like that. And they were so excited about their release. It was really cool.
Awesome. I guess, do have a couple questions that I have on my end, but we also want to talk a little bit about gaming, because I've heard that you're quite a gamer yourself. Is that right?
I mean, here and there, I will say that, my job, I work my job so many hours a week. Sometimes it's hard for me to get away, but Louisville had a huge snowstorm a couple weeks ago, and like the night that it was starting, everyone else was going grocery shopping and like buying milk and eggs. We'd already done that, and I knew I was about to be snowed in for a few days for my wife. And so I drove to a store and bought a Switch, because I've always wanted a Switch. Like for the last time, I wanted a Switch, and I walk in, and other people are like, the parking lot's a mess, and other people are like, oh, do you all have like milk and eggs? She's like, oh yeah, right over here. And I'm like, excuse me, I would like to buy a Switch. Can you open up the thing? And so I bought a Switch, and me and my wife. The
essentials, man. You got the essentials down pat.
You know what? I knew we were gonna. And my wife has never been a big gamer, but she loves platformers and like Mario. And so the newest Mario.
I played some other releases, but honestly, Nintendo games are legit. They're where like I can spend hours and hours and hours just playing like Mario, like you said. Yes. So what have you been playing on the Switch? What's been your newest?
We went through the entire Mario. So the Mario 3D world, we like just co-opted that, and then I'm starting to work through Bowser's Fury. She's not too big in like open world stuff, but I'm okay with that. She's one of those.
I don't even know what that is. Is that new?
It's brand new. It just came out, I don't know, like a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that. And it's really fun. It's super fun. But lately, within like the last 3 or 4 days, I finally got Breath of the Wild, Zelda, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And man, I'm loving it. It's loving it.
Environment-wise, I mean, I've always been a Legend of Zelda fan. I've played most. I skipped a couple, like in like the N64 GameCube kind of region.
Yeah.
But every Legend of Zelda game I've played, I've absolutely loved just the story. You get drawn in so much to it.
What's your favorite one ever?
You know, I sound like super like, oh, I'm nostalgic or whatever, but Ocarina of Time, that was just the one that I spent the most hours playing as a kid. I mean, and I haven't even, you know what? I haven't even played Majora's Mask, which was the follow-up to that one. I have never played that one. So maybe if you guys are interested in that, I could stream that on Twitch. Let me know in the comments if y'all are fans of that one.
That's really, I am a Wind Waker guy. I loved Wind Waker because I loved the shell shading. And I don't know, that was the first Zelda that really grabbed me. Like I'm old enough that I played like the original, like the first 2 Zeldas on Nintendo, like the original Nintendo, and they were never like my absolute favorite, but I played them. But man, Wind Waker was the one like that just grabbed me. I was crazy for it. But I am loving Breath of the Wild. I am loving this game.
Yeah, well, so Wind Waker, I watched. I never played it, but I watched it secondhand because my brother had a GameCube. I was already on the PlayStation, Xbox kind of side of things, but I found myself constantly in his room watching him play that game. So that's another one I got to play. So again, if y'all want to see that one. Well, awesome. So a couple questions, I guess, coming up. So you guys are doing. I saw an ad actually on Facebook. You guys are doing private virtual tastings. Are you behind that, or like what's the story with those?
I am. So that was really very early on in my role as digital brand ambassador. You know, once we kind of close down, like how can we reach people? Like people really crave that sort of one-on-one tasting experience that you get at a distillery. Sometimes not one-on-one, you're in a group of people. So what we did is we set up this program where if you bought, so it depends on where you get it from. You can get it from the distillery. We also offer it on like caskers.com, reservebar.com. I think maybe Cask Cartel is on there as well. A few different online retailers. And then even select retailers around the store, like brick and mortar, you can find them. Where if you buy, sometimes it's 3 of the bottles, sometimes it's 4 of the bottles. You just basically are buying the bottles and you get a free private virtual tasting. And when I say private, I mean you and me. Like I'm not going to loop you in with a group of people. It's just on a Zoom call. You buy it. It has a link that takes you to the landing page where you actually schedule it yourself. And it's like, there's a charge on it, but you put a promo code in that comes with that purchase, and it takes the charge off completely. So it really is completely free. And then I contact you, I give you a link, and on the day and time that you scheduled, it's you and me. Like, we just show up. And I've had them to where it's literally just me and one other person. I've had them where there's 6 different people. They shared the link out with their friends, and it's across like 3 or 4 time zones. It's so much fun. I cannot tell you how fun it is. I think a lot of times people are like, oh man, I'd rather just be at the distillery. That's cool and all, but I will tell you the problem you have at the distillery, there's laws regulating how much we can pour you. We can only pour you up to like 1.75 ounces. So if you taste 5, products, you're going to get a quarter ounce of each one, right? When you're doing it at your home, you can pour as much as you want because you don't have to drive anywhere, and we're going to have a really good time. And I'm going to have a drink with you every single time.
That's awesome. Actually, that worked. Like you said, these people sharing with their friends, I think that's such a cool idea. Actually, a lot of my friends out here, we used to have like in-person meetups where we would go to this one guy's house and bring all our bottles. We've been doing a couple like Zoom virtual ones where we send each other samples, but something like that would work so well because we could just split a bottle and have you guys come on and talk about it. That's such a cool idea. I know a lot of people here in the chat were saying like, I'm excited to go buy a bottle of Rabbit Hole. Well, if you buy, what do you say, like 3 or 4, check out their website for more information.
I will tell you, even if you just buy like 1 or 2 of the bottles, just hit me up. I have the easiest email ever, everybody. It's Adam@rabbitholedistillery.com. Be like, hey, I saw you on Clifton's show. It was great. I bought a bottle of Cavehill. I'd love just to talk to you about it. I'll just schedule some time with you, and we'll just do like a quick one. We'll do like a 30-minute tasting, and we'll really get super nerdy about it and talk about the bourbon and whatever else you want to talk about. Like, I just love doing them. Like, they're so much fun. So just contact me. Just let me know, everybody.
That's awesome. Well, final question for you regarding like you guys' like news and new announcements. I saw you guys just announced you're doing a new founders collection using a 15-year-old cask strength bourbon. Can you tell us about that? I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah, so it is going to be our second limited release. The first one happened in October. We're going to try and do 2 of these a year. The first one that we released was Boxer Grail, our rye, but it was some of the very first barrels that Cave laid down when he first started distilling, and it's about 6 years old. It came out to about 7 barrels, so it was like 1,300 bottles or so. Incredibly limited. It was cask strength. It was like 115 proof. Excellent. This next one is a completely different animal. It is a 15-year-old bourbon. We obviously, it's not our distillate. Like, we didn't produce that. We haven't been around for 15 years. It actually came from Cave's personal stocks. When he got into Kentucky and he started really falling in love with bourbon, he started buying barrels of bourbon and like aging them in these warehouses where he bought them from. And so this is a really great bourbon. It's about 15 years old, but is then aged for an extra year in Mizunara Japanese oak casks, which are incredible. If you all don't know about Mizunara oak, these trees can be like 200-300 years old. They're huge casks. They're incredibly rare to find. And it just adds this incredible, almost like sandalwood and tobacco sort of finish to this already 15-year-old bourbon. It's an experience. And so we're going to be releasing that around Derby, which is the first Saturday in May. So around that time, we're going to be releasing that. There's going to be select retailers around the country. So if you all are interested, just go to your retailer and be like, hey, I really want one of these bottles. Can you order it? Or when it gets in, can you let me know? And we'll see.
Do you know how about
hopefully you'll be able to get one.
How many bottles that release is going to be?
I think there's it's around the same as the Boxer Grail. I think it's like 1,200. It's less than Boxer Grail. So I think it's around like 1,200, something like that. I don't know the exact number. I don't even know if we've landed on the exact number because we're actually still fulfilling orders. And until you completely empty the barrels, you have no idea how much is in there, right, and how much loss you're going to have. So I'm thinking we're selling around 1,200 or so, something like that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you guys definitely ask your retailers about that. If not, just reach out to him. He could probably point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll just send you one. Talk on me.
Well, I know a lot of people are coming in at the last minute. I guess someone just finished their stream. Last minute shout outs to Cohen and Sam from My Whiskey She Wines. Good to see y'all. Catch the replay if you're very curious about Rabbit Hole. Adam, thank you so much for taking us through the distillery. And like I said, first time doing a virtual tour on my channel. So happy we did it with you. You're such an awesome character. Someone said they want to have a drink with you. So
I get that a lot.
Awesome. Any last, where can people find you on the web or where they can find about Rabbit Hole? I guess do your little spiel at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, if anybody, is really interested and want to learn more about Rabbit Hole, you can always reach out to me at adam@rabbitholedistillery.com. You can reach out to info@rabbitholedistillery.com. Spoiler alert, they all come to me. But I mean, you kind of set all our channels at Rabbit Hole on Instagram, on Facebook. I think TikTok. I mean, there's we're all over the place right now.
You guys are killing it on TikTok. That's actually, we talked a bit about that. You guys have an awesome presence there. If you guys don't know, there is a bourbon TikTok community, which, by the way, if you're not yet following me on TikTok, sorry to cover you up there, Adam, but there's my TikTok code. So just want to throw that out there for a second.
On the internet. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting community there. But yeah, please reach out. And whenever, Clifton, I'm going to say this, the next time you're in Louisville, let me know. We'll come up here. We'll walk through the distillery. We'll do even more tasting together, and we'll have a lot of fun together.
I was going to say, you guys have some ryes, so you're welcome back on my channel anytime. If we want to talk about the ryes, do another one of these. That would be awesome. But very, very cool. Well, I do want to, before we head out, I just want to say Saturday I am going live. For those curious, I'm doing there's two ideas because I'm still waiting on a package. Who knows if it's going to show up in the mail in time? If it shows up, I'm doing a live tasting of this event called Sip Awards, and it's like they send out samples to people blind across the country to try out, give their reviews and tasting. So I ordered a bottle myself. It's not sponsored. I just ordered a bottle. So I'm gonna taste through those lives if that arrives. If it doesn't arrive, I'm doing a blind flight sent to us by our friend Scary Peeper. Y'all all know Scary Peeper in the chat. So I'll let y'all know. Y'all see the Facebook or the post on that. But also after that stream, y'all have been asking for it. We're gonna do it. I'm doing part 2 of I Love You, Colonel Sanders over on Twitch. So Adam, but this game is basically a dating simulator for Colonel Sanders. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't, but it looks amazing.
The most ridiculous thing. I did a full stream of it on my channel, but so if you're curious about seeing that, if you guys want to see that, make sure to check out my Twitch page, twitch.tv/bourbonbites. The link is down below. Please give me a follow and definitely turn on notifications because you got to see part 2 of that. If you missed part 1, you got to see part 2. It's very, very interesting. Well, again, Adam, thank you so. Ooh, wow. Okay. I was moving my challenge coin that is available to patrons only at patreon.com/bourbonbites off of my glass. Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you again for being here. And for those of you that are patrons and you're going to the after party, I'll see you over on Discord for the after party. Cheers, guys. Cheers, Adam. Thank you so much.
Cheers, everybody.